What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, fourth question. Jason, DAngelo Russell is averaging 27 points and 7 assists on 54% from the field, 51% from three, 94% from the line over his last 6 games since rejoining the starting lineup. What does this mean for the Lakers in the approaching trade deadline? Now, first of all, I've been saying for a while that DAngelo Russell is a very good basketball player who's just a poor use of resources for the Lakers. Here's why. For a 6-game stretch in January, when you get to play 3 teams that are below 500, he's an awesome innings eater. I said this before the season. One of the reasons why I actually thought the Lakers would be a better regular season team than they were is I was like, oh, DAngelo Russell, forget about the playoff stuff. The dude's great for regular season basketball. You can have him until February, help them win a lot of games. So like I already knew that D'Lo could do this, right? But 2 things are true. One, you're not running your offense through D'Lo in the playoffs. We just know that when he runs into like really athletic and physical teams, his ability to make shots in drive advantage situations goes down a big level, right? And then 2, LeBron and AD are just going to take more control in those situations. So all of a sudden, that specific thing that D'Lo's great at becomes significantly less valuable when we get into April and May. And then 2, his athleticism, or lack thereof, and his lack of focus on defense causes his impact in the other areas of the game to go down, especially when he's not scoring 27 points, right? So what is his value then? What is with D'Lo and what he brings to the table, what is his value? Ideally, for a championship level team, you'd want him to be your 6th man, the guy who'd come in and run the offense for your bench groups. But then the question becomes, do you want to use a $17 million salary slot on a 6th man while you're also not nearly good enough at the 2 and the 3 to compete with the best teams in the league? Because that's the thing. Before you go, oh, Jason D'Lo's a starter, we've talked about this. Austin D'Lo Torian, fine for the regular season. You're not beating the best teams in the league in a 7-game series if that's your 1, 2, 3. So to me, in a championship team, D'Lo is a 6th man. But you're using $17 million in salary on a 6th man when you've got a guy making the biannual exception in Taurean Prince playing the 3, and you've spent most of the season with a 2-guard named Cam Reddish, who's a veteran minimum guy playing, right? You need upgrades there. So it doesn't make sense to have that $17 million 6th man unless you already have your core 5 down, which the Lakers do not. That becomes a misallocation of resources, right? Then you start to ask yourself, would I be better off if I had Gabe Vincent just kind of, when he gets back from his injury, take over as like that bench guard who kind of leads that point of the offense and use DAngelo Russell as a vehicle to upgrade the 2 and the 3? So let's look at the second half of this. But Jason, D'Lo is better than Austin Reaves. Why not trade Austin? Because that's the thing. If we're talking about it as Austin D'Lo Torian is not good enough, and we need to upgrade something in there, and I've got these 2 skill guards. Okay, what if I trade Austin and I have D'Lo as my 1, and then I upgrade the 2 and the 3 somehow? Well, there's several reasons why that's not the right approach. 1, Austin has clearly demonstrated himself to be a better playoff player with more matchup resiliency. He's just better at doing the little things. So when LeBron and AD kind of command the offense, he's a better connective piece. He's a better like playing passing lanes. He's better at taking charges. He's better at attacking closeouts and just kind of being that connective piece on offense, right? Like he just finds a way to be more impactful in a smaller role. Whereas with D'Lo, it's like if you give him the keys to the offense in January, he's obviously better than Austin at that. But once the athleticism goes up and LeBron and AD have to play bully ball more and all these other things change, all of a sudden Austin's impact goes up a level. And I say matchup resiliency because no matter who the Lakers played last year, you never felt like you were bad with Austin on the floor. But with D'Lo, it was like some nights it worked, some nights it didn't. Some matchups it worked, some matchups it didn't. So that's reason number 1. Secondly, Austin's salary is lower. So it's just harder to use as salary filler. You'd have to include more players. If you want to go get a good player, Austin makes $12 million. What are you going to do for the rest of the salary there? D'Lo makes 17 and change. That's just bigger. It's a bigger number to fill up more of that salary filler gap. And then third, Austin is just more important to the future of the Lakers. He's a couple years younger. He just signed a 4-year contract extension on an affordable number, whereas D'Lo will become an expiring contract next year. He's just more value. That's why NBA GMs are asking for Austin in these trades. They view him as a more valuable asset, which is why the Lakers would prefer to keep him, right? So it really is this simple. We know Austin D'Lo Torian is too small and unathletic to compete with the best teams in the league. We know an upgrade has to be made somewhere in that group. D'Lo is simply the best vehicle with which to make that happen. Now, maybe the Lakers will change their mind and trade Austin instead because D'Lo is playing really well. I personally think that would be a mistake. But hopefully that kind of breaks it down. Like, I never thought D'Lo wasn't capable of this. I never thought D'Lo wasn't a good player. I just look at him as the obvious vehicle via his salary, via the length of his contract, via some of his playoff limitations, and via his redundancy with Austin. I viewed him as the clear opportunity or the vehicle, I should say, to make an improvement in that starting five. Jason, is Terry Rozier enough to put the Miami Heat onto the same tier with Boston and Milwaukee? No, of course not. But it does make them better. And most importantly, it maintains their flexibility moving forward. Miami is telling you they don't think DeJounte Murray is worth whatever the cost to pay is. They don't think DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine are going to be transformative players for the Miami offense. Now, you can argue whether or not they let Dame slip. That's a whole other discussion. And again, similar to the conversation around Adrian Griffin, like, yeah, as we zoom out, some of this doesn't make sense. But as we zoom in to right now, look who's available. Terry Rozier, you're going to get a good chunk of what a DeJounte Murray brings to the table, and for less on a shorter-term deal. So I understood that, right? Now, specifically on a basketball front, how does Terry Rozier make the Heat better? First and foremost, he fundamentally changes the physical profile of the team. I've talked a lot about this with the Lakers specifically as it pertains to Bruce Brown. Like, when you have like a really good athletic front court, like a Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, or a LeBron James and Anthony Davis, or a Giannis Antetokounmpo and Brook Lopez, but you have lesser athletic players on the perimeter, you can still run into issues because it's just really hard for those guys to cover all the gaps. We've seen that in a resounding way with the Bucks and the Lakers this year, right? So specifically what I like is you're giving yourself a really, really good athlete at the guard position who also can play both sides of the floor alongside Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. You're changing the athletic profile of the team. You're making it so that you are incredibly athletic in all three position groups, at least within your core lineups. I really, really like that piece. And like, again, at the guard position, it's different. We talk about at the forward position and center position, it's like matchup attacking in the post. It's like rim protection. It's like the ability to switch onto smaller guards and hold your own. It's like help defense, low man possessions, tagging rollers, blocking shots, cleaning up the defensive glass, weak side rotations. At the guard position, it's like a lot of just point of attack stuff. It's like generating dribble penetration while containing dribble penetration on the other end. That's like the fundamental athletic imposition of a really good athletic guard, right? And Terry Rozier is just an excellent athlete at his position, right? The Memphis game last night, obviously the Heat lost, bad loss. That to me is just regular season basketball, right? And Memphis is one of those, what do I keep telling you guys about young athletic teams in January that don't really have anything to lose? Right, we've seen this with the Jazz. We're seeing it with Memphis now. Even Portland has had their moments. These young athletic teams are going to have a lot of success in the NBA regular season, especially around this time of year when teams aren't playing hard consistently, right? But in that game, Terry Rozier was beating people off the dribble. Doing it in pick and roll. We talked about how important it is in pick and roll to engage the screen defender to open up other pieces, right? That's what allows Bam Adebayo to get behind the pick and roll defender. The only way to prevent a screen defender from keeping the roller and the ball handler in front is to engage him fully. Terry can do that by getting real downhill rim pressure and ball screens. And then on switches, there was a play in the second half. Terry Rozier gets Xavier Tillman on a switch, just a nasty dribble move, gets right by Xavier Tillman all the way to the basket. That's an important part of beating pick and roll coverages that end in switches. So like that's the offensive side of things. And then on the defensive end of the floor, it's just a better athlete at the guard position that can contend with the other great athletes around the league. And like, again, look at it just specifically with the playoff context. It just adds another two-way athlete to your position group where you did not have a two-way athlete. Now you have Bam as kind of like that defensive fulcrum, offensive fulcrum. Then you have Jimmy as like that versatile forward. And you have Terry Rozier as your two-way athlete guard. Which, again, as I've said, one of the most important archetypes in the league. You can kind of start to see the team starting to take shape with like a skill guard like Tyler Herro, and then an athlete guard like Terry Rozier, right? My versatile defensive coverage guru and Bam Adebayo that can switch and drop and high drop and blitz and do all these things. And then I've got Jimmy and like think about what Jaime Jaquez Jr. can do is more of like a matchup attacking forward, and Jimmy can guard on the perimeter. It's like you start to see things just start to make sense from the athletic profile of the team, right? Secondly, secondary shot creation. He's a slightly above average pick and roll shot creator in Charlotte, but we have to remember it's Charlotte, right? He 485 points on 494 pick and rolls, just under a point per possession, 55th percentile. But most of that was related to his passing and who he was passing the ball to. Terry shot 50% when he shot in pick and roll, 58% in effective field goal percentage when we weight it for threes. That's 1.11 points per pick and roll where he shoots. That's in the 93rd percentile. He also gets 1.3 points per his own shot attempt out of ISO. So, like, he can score the basketball. And again, even when it comes to the stuff with Charlotte and the rest of the roster, even despite that, he had a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, 6.6 assists per game, 2.2 turnovers per game. So, totally solid secondary shot creator. Gives you an additional offensive weapon on a team that was a bottom 10 offense before the trade. He scored 23 points per game in Charlotte. So here's the thing. In summary, do I think he puts Miami on the same tier with Boston or Milwaukee? No. But that guy wasn't really available except for Dame this last summer, right? So you made a smaller move that maintained some of your future flexibility, made you better in the short run. But yeah, I mean, you're going to be outgunned again when you get into some of these late playoff rounds. I do think that it closes the gap somewhat and does give Miami more of a puncher's chance. But yeah, like obviously we'd be lying to ourselves if we think Terry Rozier is the difference between that Boston Celtics team and this Miami Heat team, or that Milwaukee Bucks team and this Miami Heat team. But I do like the deal. I like the deal because it makes the Heat more interesting, it makes them better, and it maintains their ability to make a move in the future.